Hey, this is Jack Downs. I'm going to do a little lesson for you on what we're going to be doing in class today. This is for the people who can't come to class because of your testing requirements or quarantine or something. And this would be our second in-person class. So I think that's class 6. And today is the 17th February. Okay, so I'm going to do just like a wooden class and say, first, we're going to look at the schedule. And to do that, I'm going to need to share my screen. So hold on. And here I go. So I'm looking at our Moodle site as usual, and you should look at it also and keep track of it regularly, especially when you're not in class, because you have to stay up to date with stuff. If I look at the schedule and zoom down to today's class, we're going to see today, of course, we're doing the collage presentations in class. You can't do yours. You haven't been able to practice yours. You can do yours next week. You just really got to get the testing underway. I know that you're most probably just waiting for results. I also know that Regan in particular, you are in a different situation with quarantine, and we will have to be in touch about arranging things. You maybe won't be in class on Monday and maybe won't be able to do practice on Monday or Tuesday. Everyone else should be and expect to do both your collage and your quotation presentation on a week from today. So that would be Wednesday next week. Therefore, you should be in a situation to practice those on Monday and Tuesday of next week in the evening up in our classroom. And then hopefully come to class on Monday also. So that'll all work out together. So if we look at the schedule, yeah, that's what's going on today. And what else? Well, you should have your collage made up, even if you weren't in class, right? Remember, a regular sheet of paper, you can write on it, you can draw on it, you can paste things on it, you can print things on it, whatever. And it's not, don't worry what it looks like, it's your own guide. Regular size sheet of paper, and have practiced, and then you need to practice with the TA also. Remember, you should, if possible, if you're on campus, please pick up your packet of material from my door, 231 Ward, which includes the rubric and lots of other handouts that you need, so please pick those up, which will help you as you head towards those presentations. You should be preparing your second presentation, which you'll be giving on the same day, which is going to be the quotation presentation, right? Okay, so the quotation presentation is going on. That's extremely small scale and simple. You simply find a quotation that you like, that is meaningful to you in some way from any kind of source, book, movie, history, song, lyric, whatever, or Google quotations, look for quotations on topics that you're interested in. You're going to get up, you're going to speak the quotation, and then give the attribution, who said it, and then you have to tell us, probably only in a couple of words, like who they are, like, you know, artist and novelist, or you'd say founding father, or you could say civil rights activists, or whatever is like a couple word description of the person, plus their name. You can put the name and that description in the middle of the quote if it's a good breaking point, or else it'll go at the end. All right, so you won't have any notes or any collage to carry or anything else. It'll have to be in your head. So there is a little memorization involved, but it's only just like one sentence, at the most 2, if you pick a longer quotation. That should be practiced also. Good. So that's all for next week. And you got to bring the rubrics to class for those. Study Guide 1 is going to be due Monday, March 1st. Keep that in mind. You should be doing your reading. At this point, you should have read up through chapter 6. Okay, up through chapter 6. I'm actually saying chapter 6 is due next class, but chapter 6 is in the grouping now. And I'm going to introduce to you today the etymology or naming presentation. I also asked you for last class to read the structuring presentation information handout, which I worked on last class. I'm going to review some more of that in this coming class. So if you didn't read it, or even if you did read it, maybe you want to review it, go look at that presentation. That handout. Remember, that handout is in your packet, but all these handouts that are mentioned here, including one new one, which wasn't originally in the packets, but for those people not attending class, I'm going to put in your packets, which is the etymology rubric. That is also there too. Where else would you find these handouts? Remember, some of them, if you go down into the this area of remote weeks materials, classes 1 through 4, are in here, like the structure and presentation information, right? Yes. But also, now we're getting past that stuff. You can just find them in the regular assignment and handouts folder. And the entomology presentation preparation directions and the rubric is there too. Okay. The entomology presentation, which I'm going to talk about now for a minute. Let me just stop my share. The entomology presentation is, it's going to be due, so a week from today, this coming Wednesday, we'll have a quotation presentation. And for those of you who didn't do the collage yet, you'll do that on the same day, but there'll be plenty of time. Good. A week from then, so that's 2 weeks from today, is the entomology presentation. So we will have done 1 week and the next week, presentation every Wednesday. It won't continue like that forever, but these first group are a little bit smaller scale. This entomology presentation takes a little bit more preparation, a little bit of research, and it's a little bit longer, and it's going to use a note card. So that's all going to be new. But still, it's on a topic which is familiar to you. It's about your name, which is why we call it naming, or entomology, which is the meaning of words. So the meaning of your name is what it comes down to. So you're going to have to do an interview for this presentation and a little bit of web research also, and a little bit of self-reflection also. And it'll be probably about 3 minutes. It's set to be 3 minutes again. So it's not super long or anything. So these things are still pretty compact. Let me show you the handout and tell you what you're going to have to do. I'm going to share my screen again. First of all, yes, there is a rubric which is in your packet, and you can see is there also as usually in the handouts too. There's a rubric which tells you the things you will be graded on, which are actually quite similar. The only additional thing is that we really want you to have what we call a preview statement, a signposted preview statement now, and you're gonna have some sources. Some sources, 2 sources at least that you mention. Plus, you're gonna have the source of who you interviewed to. Okay, let's look at the handout. If you're looking at this on paper from the packet, it's going to be in green, by the way, as I make things different colors and for whatever reason, just to be different. So this handout begins, first of all, it doesn't tell you the date this is due. That's in the schedule, okay? So it's going to be the same kind of cycle. It's due on a Wednesday. That's 2 weeks from today. A week from the presentation, we're going to be doing quotations. And as usual, you need to have it done ahead of time so you can practice it on Monday and Tuesday to give it on Wednesday. Very good. This handout, for whatever reason, begins with the body of the presentation. Okay, so we'll get to the introduction and the conclusion on the second page. So the idea is, what is the meaning of what are the well, let's talk about first. What are the 3 main ideas? Okay. The Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2, and Roman numeral 3 of the body of your presentation. Those are that's the meat of your presentation. The first one is, what is the meaning of your name? So how are you going to find that out? So the meaning of your name, and is going to be, and by the way, we're talking about probably your first name. You can do your first name or your last name, but probably your first name. You're going to research and report this information using at least 2 sources. And this is almost certainly going to be on the web. If you search name meanings, you'll get a lot of websites, and a lot of them are very good, but they have slightly different answers too, depending on what your name is. And some names are easier to figure out than others. And then the meanings can be different for names. The same name looked at from a couple different cultures can have different meanings too. So keep those things in mind too. And also your name probably has some root word associated with it, and that might have certain meanings that have changed over time also. So you're going to go find some examples. What are you going to find? You're going to find things like behindthename.com is a good website. You're going to find perhaps some wikis about your name in particular. You're going to find lots of other websites that analyze your name. Most of you, as I said, will focus on your first names. If for any reason you prefer to do your last name, we can. And for some of you, there may be a couple of you, for one reason that we'll get to in a minute, do both your first and your last name. But let's imagine most of you are going to do your first name. So you're going to go research, you're going to go on the web, you're going to look up names. What does it mean, my name? What is the history of my name? Where does my name come from? What are some optional meanings that are from it? And you're going to make sure you write down notes and you record where it came from. What is the website, for instance? What is the author of the article? When was the article published? Where is it published? You're going to need a little bit more information, because when you give this information in your presentation, you're going to give both, you're going to say where it was and or who wrote it, for instance, and some other qualifying information. Ideally, you want to have two qualifying pieces of information, like credentials, to make it more credible, that you really have a source. So for instance, it might be when it was published, where it was published, who wrote it, maybe something about their credentials. Are they a doctor or something, or a researcher or whatever? If you get that information, depends on where you get the information, what kind of credentials you're going to have. So when you speak it, so as it says here, always keep the source name and credentials together. Okay. Ideally, you're going to credit the source before you give the information, and then you're going to provide 2 additional bits of information about the source to qualify it, right? So here's some examples, as I just discussed a moment ago. So you might, for instance, if I was doing something about a speech about potassium, and I'm sure why I have that here, but say Dr. Richard Moore, MD, PhD, and former biology professor from SUNY Plattsburgh, explains in his book titled whatever. That would be if I had like a book I was referring to. Then I'd finally have the quotation. So that's actually a lot of pieces of information about that person. It's their name, it's their credentials, it's where they worked, and also comes from a book. What is the name, title of the book? That makes it extremely credible. It won't be quite the same for your websites about your name, but it could be. According to behindthename.com, imagine I'm speaking this in my presentation. In an entry dated December 14th, 2019. Now, did I have to remember December 14th, 2019? No, that's an example of something I'm going to put down on my index card, that date, so I can refer to it quickly. Although the name Jack began as a medieval nickname for John, now it is more often an independent name. And you see that isn't necessarily a direct quotation, it's the information I got from there. If I find something that's really useful as a direct quotation, I can use it as a direct quotation and attribute it to that website. I'm probably going to just give information that came from there. And then, so you're going to have at least 2 sources, two chunks of research, 2 pieces of information. Each one is going to have their own source. So from 2 different places to go with this. Using web sources, you include the name that is easy for the audience to remember. So you're not going to speak out www. You're going to say, for instance, I would say the Downs family name page at wikitree.com. So you try to shorten it. You try not to make it too much like reading out a URL, a web address, and but you make sure you say where it came from, what makes it credible, and then give the information. Okay, so imagine that's your first. That's in your body. That's your main idea number 1. I would begin by saying, in this body section, the name Jack has a long history, according to behindthename.com, and according to whatever. So I've given you some background, some history, and also maybe some meanings. And in this culture, the name Jack actually means it comes with these flavors and these names here, and you can find that information at So that's the first main idea. The second main idea, this requires some other work from you also, is I want you to interview a family member. It's probably one of your parents, but it might be a brother or sister. It might be an aunt and uncle. It might be a grandparent. Just anybody who would know and be appropriate and be easy to get a hold of, about how your name was selected. Now, of course, we're talking about your first name, right? You could talk, as I said, any of those kinds of people. What do I mean by interview? You just call them up and you say, hey, I've got to do this for class. Give me a couple of minutes and I want to ask you some questions. Now, you may already think you know where your name came from, and that's great. Maybe they will just tell you a story you already know. Fine. I'm always interested in this class. I find a number of people thought they knew where their name came from, but when they ask the questions, they actually get different answers. So that could be interesting too. You could, again, you could conduct these interviews in person. That's fine, but it's probably more convenient for you to do it on the phone or on Zoom or something like that, right? You should prepare your questions in advance, what you want to ask, which is pretty basic. How did I get my name? Who gave it to me? When did it happen? Was there other names that were considered? You know, why was that name selected? You can take good notes, transcribe those notes right away. You must submit a typed question and answer transcript of this interview on presentation day. So you're going to give me that transcript. If you conduct multiple interviews, submit the transcript of the main interview only. Let's say you make a call, it doesn't go so good, but you get some notes, and then you call somebody else and you get a lot better information. I only need the transcript from one of those interviews. You might use some direct quotations. So if they say something particularly you want to use a direct quotation, make sure to write it as such. Otherwise, you're just getting general information. And then in that number, and then you get to your second point in your body. You're going to say, so the way I got my name was an interesting story. According to my grandmother, and she told me that this, and this all comes from your interview. And then maybe there's some other family member also. And you can talk about how it happened and what it meant, so on. Then number 3, you're going to indicate now this involves personal reflection. Then you're going to say, what do you think about your name? Okay. Does your name accurately reflect you? Would another name fit you better? Maybe actually the name you're talking about is one you actually don't use anymore. Maybe you have chosen a different name. Maybe you're thinking of it. Maybe lots of people know you as something else, and only here in college you pick something different. That's all fine and interesting, right? Maybe something to think about. Maybe your name reflects you very well, and these are the reasons why you like it and you're keeping it, and so on. So it's a personal reflection at that point. So that's the body. Okay, good. And that's the work that's involved in research on the history and background and meaning of the name, interview on how you got your name, personal reflection on what your name, whether you like your name, whether your name works for you, whether it accurately reflects you, and so on. Good. Now let's back around kind of to the beginning, the introduction. So now you've done that research, you've taken those notes, you've written some things down and so on. Now you're actually going to build the presentation. So your introduction, you're going to imagine you want to use at least 2 attention-getting devices at the start of your talk. These, and what you say will be to some degree written on your index cards when you actually get to the point of making up the cards. And we'll talk more about that later, but so the introduction, at least 2 attention-getting devices. What do I mean by attention-getting devices? Well, we haven't really discussed these yet, but we will get to them in a lot more detail. But here's a couple that would make sense here. You could use a quotation. Maybe you find a quotation that really works for you. I think if I looked up the name Jack and quotations with the name Jack, I might find one that worked, maybe not. Rhetorical questions. This is very common, and I think I would start that way. I would start my presentation by saying something like, are you a jack in the box? Are you a jack of all trades? Maybe you're a jackass. The name Jack means lots of things to lots of different people. So that would catch attention. It would be rhetorical questions. And even when I said jackass, it'd actually be a little bit of a startling statement too, but that I wouldn't want to get any more offensive than that. Be careful with language, right? Maybe it would almost be a little bit funny, and maybe there'd be a little humor thrown in there. I could use suspense. I could use visual aids. Maybe that would work for this presentation, maybe not. An illustration or an anecdote, for instance, it would be kind of like a little story you could start off with. You know, when I was 9, my name this happened because of my name or something like that. I don't know, maybe a little anecdote. But you're not going to take away anything that you're going to be doing later, all right? Maybe it's suspense. Maybe it is some kind of a startling statement. Maybe something amazing or really remarkable happened connected to your name. And you can surprise us with that. So you're going to get 2 of these things going on at the top, start of your talk. And you're going to make sure you don't begin with any cliche beginnings like, what's in a name? I don't want to hear that one again. No. A rose by any other name? No, I don't want to hear that one again. Okay. Although if we have anybody named Rose, well, maybe it would work for you, but even so, I think you can do better than that. Just hi, my name is Jack. No, 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 no. Or imagine, or close your eyes. Let's stay away from those cliche or weak beginnings, okay? You really want to begin with some attention-getting device. This should build to your topic. So I would say those things and say, you maybe some of those things are me, you know, maybe you think I am some of those things, but anyway, at least I am Jack, and just plain Jack, and let me tell you about it. And then I would say, I'd move into a signposted preview statement. So attention-getting device builds to actually your name, right? Then signposted preview statement is, these are the things I'm going to tell you. First, and I would literally say this like this, I literally would count them out too. There's going to be 3 of them. You know, the 3 main ideas, that's what they are. Okay, first, we'll talk about the history of the name Jack, which has been around for a very long time. Good. Second, we'll discuss how I got my name and what happened that I got this name and what my family says about it. And third, we'll talk about what I feel about my name and how I think it does reflect me, or accurately reflects me. So that's my signposted preview statement. I'm literally going to say those things. I'm really going to say first, second, last, first, second, third, something like that. I'm literally going to use the we language, and I'm going to be trying to vary my describe, discover, explore, explain, reveal, note, highlight, consider, discuss, identify, talk. So those different kinds of words. I'm going to try to do this all a little more slower than you normally might speak, but especially when I get to this, these are the things I'm doing. I'm going to gesture them out too. They're also I'm going to list those in the same order that they're going to appear. And then I'm going to start right into the body. Okay. And they give you an example right there that in the text, sort of what I just tried to do now. So finally, then you're going to go through your body. Then you're going to talk about, you're going to use your sources with your with the history and the background and the meaning. You're going to use your interview source with the way how you got your name, and then you're going to personally reflect on the name meaning. And we want to feel like we have these chunks. You leave them pause a little bit between each one, or try to make a transition between them. And then finally, you will get to, you've done those, and now we have to have a conclusion. Always have a nice pause before your conclusion. And you don't want to use any kind of cliche conclusion. You're not going to say, in conclusion, to sum it all up, in summary, so on, none of those things. Or thanks for listening, or that sort of thing. No, you're going to signal that you are ending. Typically, you refer back to the beginning. So if I had started out with, are you a jack of all trades? Are you a jack in the box? Are you a jackass? If I started out with that, when I got to my ending, I might say, now you know, I might be a jack of all trades. Hopefully I'm not a jackass. And I certainly am not a jack in the box, but now you know really what kind of a jack I am. So I would kind of refer back to that maybe. That would signal to my audience that I'm nearing the end, right? I could slow down. I would use a double pause. We talk about a double pause before we actually begin the conclusion. It really lets people know there's a transition here and things are really wrapping up. I would reinforce the content. I'd go back over those main ideas briefly, but try to use different language this time and a lot less detail than I did when I went through my body. And I would hope to have a clincher. And it's tough. A clincher is like the drum roll at the end. It's a clever, funny quotation, something special that wraps everything up, you know, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes actually you get up there and you're talking and a clincher comes to you out of the blue when you get to that point. If you come up with something you think is going to work, great, you jot that down on your index card. Well, first in your notes, index card. Yes, and then you're going to convert these notes to index cards, which are going to be an outline. There may be some more detail about the introduction. You may actually say some words, write down some specific words, even a sentence or two that you're going to say. But you're not going to read it from the card. You're going to definitely include Roman numerals for the main idea number 1, number 2, number 3. You're going to include in those, certainly this in the Roman number 1, you're going to include the sources that you're going to be citing. Okay, and then some other key words are going to help you remember what it was about. Maybe there's a direct quotation that you use use those. Same thing for the interview information. You're gonna make sure to get key points listed there. And if you're gonna do a direct quotation about how you got your name. And then finally, the personal reflection is probably just some key points there. Get to the conclusion. You may even write out a complete sentence that you might be saying. It's something you want to say in a particular way, or if you have to come up with a clincher, that sort of thing. So in the end, how many cards will there be for this? I will be giving you cards in class, by the way. Probably 3. And we'll look back at the information which you received earlier, which we didn't really discuss about proper use of index cards. You can look at it on your own. You only write on one side, make sure to write very legibly. You make it kind of like an outline. It's only occasionally we have things like complete sentences. You don't read off the cards. They're just a guide. You always hold them just in one hand. Again, it's just one side also. We tend to do them vertically also. So you write them as if you turn the card vertically. It helps you to keep things short. Okay, so you're gonna make your cards. To use the tips and instructions in the communication apprehension handout, which we received earlier. Okay, so that is my first run through of that presentation. Again, that's a couple of weeks from now, but obviously you're gonna have to do an interview, a little bit of research. So the interview in particular, you need to be doing that very soon and take down some notes on that. So you'll hand in, you'll have your rubric, and you'll have your transcript from the interview. That was what you're gonna be bringing to the speech day itself. Okay, I'm going to stop that long share, and thank you very much for sticking with me for this. This is all the stuff I'm going to be doing after our presentations today. Please ask me questions, and we can have individual Zoom meetings too as we go ahead with this. So thanks very much, and hopefully I'll see you in class in person soon.